There are tons of tips and tricks about making your own hummus at home, but not everyone wants to take the time or effort to make the perfect version. In this video, we're going to make hummus at 3 different levels of complexity, starting with the most simple and ending with the ultimate hummus. Let's go! For our quick hummus, we'll be using canned chickpeas, since they're pretty much ready right away. First, we'll drain the liquid from the can and put them in a large bowl filled with water. The reason we're doing this is for the chickpea skins. See that little transparent thing there? That's the outer layer of the chickpea. They don't blend very well, so in order to get a better consistency, we're going to get as many out as we can. So first, we're going to agitate the chickpeas to get the peels to come off. As you can see, they sort of float to the top, so we'll skim the top of the water to get as much as we can. If you don't have a little mesh strainer like this, you can use a slotted spoon or just your fingers. Don't stress too much about getting every single piece, just get what you can quickly and drain the liquid from the bowl. We'll add those chickpeas to a food processor and break it down a little bit before adding the other ingredients of tahini, lemon juice, salt, and water. As always, the exact ingredient amounts will be linked in the video description. I'll process that for about 3 to 4 minutes until everything is fully broken down and incorporated. As you can see here, this looks pretty close to most store-bought hummus. The texture is fine, the flavor is pretty good, and it makes a great afternoon snack. For the next level of hummus, we're going from canned beans to dried beans. These don't take that much work, but they do require some foresight as the beans have to be soaked for at least 8 hours, up to overnight. Once properly hydrated, we're going to rinse them off and pour them into a large pot and cover them with about 2 inches of water, along with some baking soda. The baking soda is going to break down the skins of the chickpeas. Now we'll bring this to a boil. You're going to get an immense amount of foam on top when the chickpeas start to boil. You can either stir that back into the water or just skim it off. After that, we'll bring the heat down to medium and allow these to cook for about 30 minutes, at which point the chickpeas are fully cooked to a similar point as the canned beans were in the first version. If you want to use whole chickpeas as a garnish for your hummus, take some out now and set them aside. The rest of them are going to be cooked even further for about another hour or so. This is a trick I learned in a video by Obi on Middle Eats. If we get the garbanzo beans down to a very mushy consistency, the skins, already having been broken down a bit by the baking soda, will become so tender that they'll blend right into the hummus, allowing it to get a very creamy consistency without having to shell every single chickpea. Now that we have our beans down to their very mushy state, we'll add them to a food processor and give them a quick blend before adding the tahini, lemon juice, water, and salt. This time, we're also going to give the added richness of a couple tablespoons of olive oil. We're going to process the ingredients for a little longer, let's say 4 to 5 minutes, and you can instantly see the difference in using the dried chickpeas. The hummus is lighter, smoother, and has a great texture. Finally, we're going with our no-holds-barred ultimate hummus recipe. This time, we'll be using homemade tahini. Tahini is a sesame paste, so first we'll need some sesame seeds, which we're going to toast very lightly on medium heat. You only want the slightest color on these before taking them off the heat. Next, we'll add those to a food processor and blend them until we get a rough paste. Now we'll add some neutral oil, I'm using avocado oil, and blend even further. You want the tahini to be a thinner, pourable consistency, but not totally liquid. You can see that there's still a little grain in the tahini, but that's fine, since it'll be going back into the food processor for the hummus. Now, you may be asking yourself, what's the point of making this at home when you already have some from the store? First of all, it's less expensive. But even if you have some loose change lying around, look at the color difference between the fresh hummus and the store-bought. The darker color of the store-bought means that the sesame seeds were toasted even more, which will add a bitter taste to your hummus. So now, we'll add that to our chickpeas along with the lemon, which we're increasing by about a tablespoon for some extra zing, as well as our olive oil, salt, and our new ingredient, some grated garlic. You may have noticed that we didn't add any water, and that's because we're actually going to add ice to this hummus as it's processing. The ice is going to give the hummus an even lighter, fluffier texture, and will keep the hummus from getting hot during our 8-minute processing time. And here you can see how nice and smooth the texture we got after doing those extra steps. The way we're going to plate this is by making a nice big pile of hummus in the middle of the dish, then pushing it outwards towards the edges. Now we're going to make a little channel for the hummus to catch the olive oil, which we'll be using as a garnish. For garnish, we'll be using some chickpeas, along with olive oil, some ground sumac, cumin, and paprika. Alright, so first thing I think we're going to try is just the 3 different levels of the hummus. We'll start with the easy, or lazy, or beginner, whatever you want to call it. So this is good. One thing you have to check if you're using canned beans is if they added salt, because Sometimes they do, and if you're not checking for that and you add salt on top of it, it can be a little bit much. It has a little bit of saltiness to it, but it's fine. It's definitely still good. Definitely worth 5 minutes that it should take to put together. Moving on to the medium hummus. So there's a few things with this version. One is the texture is very different, like immensely different. The taste is a little bit better, I think, for two reasons. One, you always get a little bit of, and you can kind of smell it if you ever opened a can of chickpeas, but like there's a little bit of a odor to it. It's nothing really off-putting or anything, but it's definitely like a distinct thing that's there. With the dried chickpeas, you just don't get that. And then the addition of the olive oil is just a richer flavor. Now for the ultimate hummus. Pulled out all the stops on this recipe, and it definitely shows that little bit of garlic. It is still pretty sharp, but it's definitely not overpowering. You don't want to add a lot because it's raw garlic. Also, that additional tablespoon of lemon juice helps a lot. And then finally, texture is better than the good hummus or the medium hummus. The step from that to this is not as great as it is from the basic hummus to the medium hummus, but like that little extra step with the ice cubes instead of the water and the couple extra minutes of processing is totally worth it. Finally, we have our all dressed up hummus. This is something that I would present at like a dinner party as an appetizer or just something as a side. You have the extra richness of the olive oil on top. You have the little bit of fresh pop from the parsley, sumac, the paprika, cumin, all working together. This is the ultimate hummus. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, please hit the subscribe button, like this video, and I'll see you next time.